I remember the night I found out. It was raining. Not the soft, cinematic kind of rain that people in songs sing about, but the kind that feels like punishment. The kind that makes every street look like it's made of broken glass. I came home early from a gig at a small cafe, still buzzing from the crowd's applause, and I heard her laughter from the kitchen, a laughter that used to belong to me. I stood there in the doorway, guitar case still in my hand, as her voice tangled with someone else's. It wasn't the words that killed me. I never even heard them clearly. It was the tone, the familiarity, the quiet intimacy of it. When she noticed me, her face collapsed into something between guilt and defiance. I didn't shout. I didn't ask questions. I just walked out into the rain. For a long time, I didn't know where I was going. The road kept swallowing me, town after town, like a song stuck on repeat. I ended up in a city I'd only ever seen in postcards, faceless, loud, and alive in ways I wasn't. I rented a room above a bakery that always smelled of burnt sugar and regret. My world shrank to 4 walls, a window, and my guitar. Every morning, I carried that guitar to the same street corner, near a bridge where the river reflected the city lights like scattered stars. I played because I didn't know what else to do. At first, no one listened. People passed by with their coffees, their phones, their worries. But sometimes a child would stop and stare, or an old man would nod in rhythm. That was enough. Then something strange happened. One afternoon, a girl filmed me playing a song I'd written for my wife, Paper Wings. She smiled at me shyly, said something about how the melody felt honest. I didn't think much of it. But 2 weeks later, I woke up to hundreds of messages. Thousands. The video had gone viral. My voice, my pain, my small corner of the world, it had all spilled into the lives of strangers. Suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. I started getting calls from managers, producers, journalists. A label wanted to sign me. They said I had a sound that tells a story. I laughed when I heard that. I wasn't trying to tell a story. I was trying to survive one. The first time I stepped into a real studio, I thought of her again. Of the way she used to sit by the window humming to the songs I wrote before anyone else heard them. We used to dream together, about stages, about lights, about the way music could save us. I realized then that she had left me long before that night. I just hadn't noticed. Now, when I play, I close my eyes and I'm back on that rainy street, the sound of tires on wet asphalt mixing with the ache in my chest. But the pain has changed shape. It doesn't burn anymore. It hums. It keeps time. My first album is called The Sound of Leaving. People say it's romantic, tragic, beautiful. Maybe it is. But for me, it's just the echo of a life that fell apart. And somehow, through the cracks, learned how to sing again. And when I stand on stage now, looking out at all those faces lit by the glow of their phones, I feel something like peace. Because in the end, every note I play still reaches her. Somewhere in some quiet kitchen, I hope she hears it too, not as a love song, but as a goodbye that never stopped ringing. I used to think love and music were the same thing, that if you poured your soul into them, they would stay. I was wrong about both. I grew up in a small town where every dream felt too loud for the silence that lived there. My father fixed cars, my mother ran a flower shop. I had a guitar I bought second-hand with money from washing dishes at a roadside diner. It smelled like smoke and rain. That's where I met her. Lila. She came into the diner one evening with a group of friends, laughing in that way that makes the whole room want to look up. I remember the sound of her bracelets when she gestured, like little chimes keeping time with her laughter. She told me later she noticed me because I was humming while stacking plates. We were both dreamers, two restless souls staring at the same small sky, trying to see something bigger. I played her the first song I ever wrote. She said it made her feel like running away. We promised each other we would. We spent years building something out of nothing. I'd play gigs at bars that smelled of beer and loneliness. She'd manage my small world like it mattered, arranging shows, printing flyers, whispering hope into my ear every time I wanted to give up. One day, she'd say, the world will listen. I believed her. It was a Thursday night, the kind of night that begins ordinary and ends as something you never stop replaying. I had just finished playing at the Velvet, a cafe where the sound system was older than the tables. The crowd had been good. I remember thinking I'd surprise her, maybe bring wine, maybe tell her about the call I got from a small label in the city, nothing serious, but it felt like a step. I walked home through the drizzle, feeling light, the kind of light that only comes when the world briefly makes sense. When I opened the door, I heard music playing, my song, our song, the one I wrote for her when we first moved in together, but there was another sound under it, laughter, a man's voice. The air changed, my heartbeat went out of rhythm. I walked into the kitchen. They were standing close, her hand still on his arm. The look on her face, the sharp panic of someone caught between guilt and relief, told me everything words couldn't. I dropped the wine. The bottle shattered. Nobody spoke. She said my name softly, like a question. But I didn't have an answer. I just picked up my guitar case and left. The door slammed behind me, but it wasn't loud enough to drown the sound of her crying. I took the next bus out. I didn't care where it went. I slept through the night, woke up in a place that smelled of rain and exhaust. A city that didn't know me, didn't know us. Perfect. I found a small room above a bakery. The landlord didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. Every morning the smell of sugar and burnt bread drifted up through the floorboards. It reminded me of the way home used to smell before everything soured. I spent my days playing under a bridge by the river. The acoustics there were strange. Every chord echoed back like it was asking me why. I played songs I hadn't dared play in years. Songs I wrote for her, songs I wrote after her, songs that didn't mean anything until they hurt. At first, no one listened. I was just another shadow making noise. But then, small things began to happen. A child dropped a coin into my guitar case and asked if I could play the sad song again. A woman stopped to film a piece of me on her phone. A man asked if he could use one of my melodies for his wedding video. I didn't realize it then, but those were the beginnings. The world had started to hum with my pain. The turning point came one grey afternoon. I was playing Paper Wings, the song I'd written for Lila back when we believed in forever. My voice cracked halfway through and I almost stopped. But there was a girl standing there, young, camera in hand, eyes bright like she could see the music. She smiled through the drizzle and said, "Don't stop. It's beautiful." She uploaded that video. I didn't even know. 2 weeks later, I woke up to chaos. My inbox was full, my phone buzzing like a broken metronome. Thousands of people had seen me, shared me, quoted my lyrics, cried to my song. Somewhere in that endless scroll of strangers, a producer reached out. "You've got something real," he said. "People don't hear honesty anymore." I laughed. Honesty had cost me everything. The first time I stood inside a real studio surrounded by glass and cables, I felt small. They told me my story was powerful. They wanted to market it. The broken-hearted street musician who turned pain into poetry. I hated how easy they made it sound, but I needed to play. I needed the world to hear what had nearly destroyed me. When my debut single dropped, it spread like wildfire. The same people who once walked past me on the street were now buying tickets to my shows. I was on talk shows, magazine covers, playlists. My name was finally everywhere. But success has an echo. Every cheer from the crowd reminded me of her voice saying, "One day, the world will listen." Months later, a letter came. No return address, no apology. Just a few lines written in her handwriting, the kind I used to trace with my fingers. "I heard your song. I always knew you'd make it. I'm sorry we broke before you bloomed." I didn't cry. I read it once, then folded it into my guitar case. It stays there still, pressed between the strings and the wood, like a ghost I've made peace with. Now, every night I stand on stages I once only dreamed of. The lights blind me, the crowd roars, and for a moment I forget how it all began. But when the noise fades, and I sing Paper Wings again, I close my eyes and see the rain-soaked streets of that small town, the window of our old kitchen, the way love once sounded before it fell apart. They say my music is about heartbreak, but that's only half the truth. It's about becoming. It's about how loss, if you listen closely, has its own melody. I'm still playing, still leaving, still learning how to live inside the echo. And somewhere, maybe she's listening, not as the woman I lost, but as the memory that taught me how to stay true when everything else walks away. Because love ends, but music never does. It's strange how silence changes when you've heard enough applause. Once, silence used to feel like loneliness. Now it feels like peace. It's been 5 years since The Sound of Leaving came out, the album that turned my heartbreak into a brand, my grief into a career. I've toured across continents, played on stages I used to dream of, and stared at oceans I never thought I'd reach. But the higher I went, the quieter it became inside me. When the lights fade, when the interviews stop, when the last encore ends, I always find myself back in some hotel room, guitar in hand, playing to no one. The world knows my voice now. But they don't know that every song is still written to the same ghost, Lila. It happened on a Sunday evening somewhere between exhaustion and another deadline. I was in my apartment overlooking the river, the same kind of river I used to play beside when I had nothing. My phone buzzed with a notification, an email. Subject: You probably don't remember me. The name hit me like a chord struck too hard. Lila Hart. I stared at it for minutes before opening it. Her message was short, careful, almost trembling through the words. I saw your concert announcement. I live in the city now. If you'd like to see a familiar face, I'll be there. No expectations, just music. I didn't answer, not then. I didn't even know what I wanted to say. But that night, while tuning my guitar, I found myself playing the melody of Paper Wings. My fingers remembered before my mind did. The venue was massive, a cathedral of sound and light. The crowd roared as I walked on stage, the kind of sound that swallows thought. Halfway through the set, I looked out at the audience. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of stories I'd never know. And then, somewhere near the back, I saw her. She wasn't glowing or cinematic. She looked real, older, human. Her hair was shorter, her eyes the same. She didn't smile, but when our eyes met, it felt like time folded in on itself. The years, the pain, the rain, everything collapsing into that single glance. I played Paper Wings for the first time in years. My voice shook. The crowd thought it was emotion. It was memory. When the show ended, I almost didn't go looking for her, but I did. She was waiting by the side exit, wearing a scarf too thin for the cold. When I saw her, my chest tightened in that old, familiar way. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "Hi," I managed. We stood there for a moment, unsure how to start after everything. Then she smiled faintly. "You're famous now," she said. "Apparently," I replied, "though I still make terrible coffee." She laughed, the same laugh that once made me want to write songs forever. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, about her new life, a small art studio, a dog named Juniper, no more pretending to be someone she wasn't. She told me she'd been following my music quietly, never daring to write until now. "I wanted to see if you were okay," she said. "I wasn't," I admitted. "Not for a long time, but I am now." She nodded. "Me too." After midnight, we walked along the river, the same way we used to back home. The city shimmered in the water, like a memory half remembered. "I used to wonder," she said, "if you'd ever forgive me." "I did," I said, "long before I became anyone worth forgiving." She stopped walking. The wind caught her hair. "Do you ever think about us?" "All the time," I said, "but not the way I used to. You were my beginning, and sometimes beginnings hurt." She smiled then, a sad, peaceful smile. "I'm glad you found your music." "I didn't," I said quietly. "It found me, after you left." We stood in silence. There was no bitterness left, no longing sharp enough to cut. Just two people who had once been everything to each other, standing on the edge of what was once love. Before she left, she asked if I'd play her something new. So I sat on a nearby bench, pulled out my guitar and played her a song I'd written that morning. A song without words yet, just a melody that carried everything I never said. When I finished, she wiped a tear and whispered, "That's beautiful. What's it called?" "The Sound of Returning." She smiled. "Goodbye then." "Goodbye, Lila." And she walked away, her figure fading into the mist of the city lights. Not a tragedy, not a heartbreak, just a closing note in a song that had finally found its ending. It's been months since that night. I haven't seen her again. But sometimes, during quiet rehearsals or interviews, I catch myself glancing at the back of the room, half expecting to see her there, and half hoping I won't. Because some stories aren't meant to be relived. They're meant to be remembered and turned into music. When people ask me what the sound of returning means, I tell them it's about forgiveness, about how love doesn't always end. Sometimes it just changes shape. and every time I play it on stage I close my eyes, feel the hum of the strings and whisper to the silence, "Thank you for leaving. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for teaching me how to sing." It's been 3 years since that night by the river, since Lila and I said goodbye with quiet smiles and a song between us. Life has moved like music does, sometimes soft, sometimes loud, always forward. My career has changed shape again. I'm not the broken heart musician anymore. The headlines stopped calling me the man who turned pain into poetry. Now they say I'm the one who found peace in the echo. I tour less, write more. The fame still lingers, but it doesn't define me anymore. I've learned that applause fades faster than forgiveness. It came in an envelope. No email this time, no digital signature. Just paper, real and textured, like something that wanted to be kept. It was an invitation to a charity concert for children's music education to be held in the same city where everything once fell apart and began again. And on the list of performers, one name caught my breath: Lila Hart, vocals and piano. I stared at it for a long time. My heart didn't ache the way it used to, it hummed. Some notes never die, they just wait for the right chord to meet them again. I said yes. The auditorium was quiet when I arrived. Empty chairs, faint echoes, the smell of wood and electricity. I saw her sitting by the grand piano, head bowed, fingers resting on the keys like old friends. "Hey," I said. She looked up, and the years folded again, but softer this time. No sharp edges, no ghosts. "Hey," she said. "It's been a while." We hugged. Not tightly, not desperately. Just long enough to remember that we were once each other's home. She'd grown into herself in a way that made me proud. Her voice was steady, her eyes kind. "I'm nervous," she admitted, laughing. "It's my first time performing in years." "Don't be," I said. "It's like riding a bicycle, or heartbreak. You never really forget how." She laughed again. Still poetic, I see. We rehearsed for hours, our sounds finding each other like constellations reconnecting after years apart. The song we chose wasn't Paper Wings or The Sound of Returning. It was something new. A song we wrote together that day, almost without realizing it. A song about two people who loved, lost, and learned to let go. We called it The Sound of Forever. The theatre was full, faces glowing beneath soft light, a quiet sense of reverence in the air. Children from the Music Foundation sat in the front row, their small hands clutching programs printed with our names. When we stepped onto the stage, the crowd applauded. But when I looked at Lila, I didn't see fame or failure. I saw life. Real, imperfect, beautiful life. We began to play. Her fingers danced on the piano, gentle but certain. My guitar followed, weaving through her melody like an echo returning home. And when she began to sing, the world disappeared. Her voice was older now, textured, rich, full of truth. Every word she sang felt like closure, like forgiveness dressed in harmony. Halfway through, our eyes met. And in that silent glance, everything that had ever been broken between us quietly healed. When the last note faded, there was no need for applause, but it came anyway, thunderous and endless. We stood side by side, breathing hard, smiling through tears. She leaned toward me and whispered, "We finally did it." "Yes," I said. "We made something that lasted." Later, when the crowd was gone and the stage was quiet again, we sat on the edge of the platform, legs dangling, watching the empty rows. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think forever meant staying, and now I think it means remembering without pain." I nodded. "Then maybe we did find forever." She smiled. "Maybe we did." Outside, the night air was cool, filled with distant city sounds and the hum of something eternal. When we said goodbye this time, it wasn't sad. It was whole. Months later, the live recording of The Sound of Forever went viral. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. People said they could feel the history in our voices, the way forgiveness sounds when it finally breathes. Every royalty from that song went to the charity we played for. Every time I hear it now, on the radio, in passing, on someone's playlist, I don't hear loss anymore, I hear life. Because love, when it's true, never really ends. It changes tempo, it shifts key, it becomes something quieter, purer. and when I close my eyes and strum the first chords of The Sound of Forever, I feel her presence, not beside me, but within the music. It's not about staying, it's not about leaving, it's about the grace of still being able to sing.